Female sexual awakening apparently requires three things: a rich man, a lot of control, and absolutely no HR department. At least that's what movies like 50 Shades of Grey and 365 Days seem to suggest. And before anyone panics, this is not a purity lecture. I watched these movies when I was young, and I'm not suddenly trying to be kidnapped by a billionaire. But that doesn't mean these stories aren't doing something interesting and worth unpacking. Before I get into it, I want to thank the people who are new to the channel and also thank the people who had a lot
I
to
know what
say
men can do
on
when
my
they're
last video on
angry.
masculinity. If you haven't seen it, give it a watch and ignore the evil typo, okay? Also, content warning, this video discusses sexual violence, coercion, and power dynamics in films. Now, let's get into it. The question I'm asking is, how do erotic romance films like 50 Shades of Grey and 365 Days frame female sexual awakening through male dominance? And how do those dynamics rely on very specific ideas about femininity, power, and desirability? My argument isn't that these movies are evil or that enjoying them is bad. It's that they repeatedly tell the same story. That pleasure arrives through control, that excessive/exaggerated power dynamics are sexy, and that women's desire can only be unlocked when a man takes charge. In today's video, I go into how these films frame desire through power and how Anna and Laura are set up differently but end up in the same place, the logic of brat-taming, and finally why fantasy doesn't automatically equal real-life desire. What's fascinating is that 50 Shades and 365 actually start from very different places. In 50 Shades of Grey, Anna Steele is explicitly framed as sexually naive. She's a virgin, she's never been with a man in that way. Her awkwardness and insecurity are central to how the film presents her sexuality. Christian Grey is constructed as her opposite in every way possible. He is rigid, his world is monochromatic and business-oriented. He's wealthy, older, sexually experienced, and emotionally controlled. The power imbalance is clear immediately, her being a university student and him being a CEO, and the film uses that imbalance to incite romantic chemistry. Given that the first time they meet, Anna is, as is evident, very nervous and intimidated by him, and he views this as endearing, I guess, or as evidence that she would make a good submissive for him.
Probably get your money back.
I had them drawn up in any perspective submissive.
Nice.
For more reasons than just the fact that she looks like his biological mother.
How can I believe you? I don't even understand your need to dominate.
I'm not a dominant. I'm not. The right term is a sadist. I get off on punishing women who look like you.
Like your mother.
Yes.
But we don't need to talk about that, at least not in this video. 365 takes a different route. Laura is not sexually naive. She's not a virgin. The film shows her pleasuring herself. She's aware of her own sexuality and desirability. Laura is not even framed as generally naive or incapable, and is actually presented as Massimo's equal, as we see with the juxtaposition of their two super official and very, very serious business agreements in the beginning of the movie.
First of all, it's not my fault.
What she's missing isn't sensuality. It's a partner who can match her freak, someone who can conquer her or wrangle her overflow of sexual energy. Her dissatisfaction isn't framed as ignorance, basically. You could assume the current relationship at the beginning of the film does not provide the stimulation that she's looking for, and they show us that.
Skończysz. Ale daj mi położnik, okej?
A nie możesz zrobić sobie przerwy?
Showing her being rejected by her partner when she gets back from work, and him just being annoying.
Nie pamiętasz, idiota, że mieliśmy tam pójść razem? Dlaczego zostawiłeś mnie samą w moją urodzinę?
No Jezu, weź się nie denerwuj, dobrze? Przecież wiesz, że z twoim sercem nie powinnaś.
We don't even like him. We don't want him for her because he's just not. He doesn't. Both films still arrive at these same conclusions, even though they start from very different points. That female pleasure ultimately requires some sort of male dominance. 50 Shades of Grey also leans heavily into the unconventionally attractive trope, which is a staple of YN romance narratives. There's a moment in Christian's office where Anna compares herself to the women who work there. She doesn't explicitly say it at first, but she's looking at them. They're in business clothes, heels, confident in their space, and Anna then says, when she's in the office and Christian offers her a job,
I don't think I'd fit in here.
the movie wants us to read this as a stark difference, but if you actually look at these women objectively, they're extremely similar. They're thin, they're white, they're conventionally attractive. Obviously, this is generalization and doesn't necessarily take into account her self-perception, but while Anna may be dressed more plainly, she may be framed as softer or shorter. She still fits those Eurocentric beauty standards perfectly. I mean, it's Dakota Johnson. It's, at this point. So the difference isn't necessarily desirability. It's power in this. And Anna's insecurity becomes an entry point for identification, which then allows for Christian's authority to be the thing that validates her worth, that makes her feel beautiful, that makes her feel worthy of these spaces. And if I was analyzing all of the films, I would show that development, but we are just going to stick with the one for today. Both films rely on a similar narrative shortcut, the damsel-in-distress. Everyone's favorite overused trope, even when it doesn't show up as a knight in shining armor type of dynamic. In 50 Shades of Grey, Anna gets dangerously drunk, in hard quotations, and is nearly sexually assaulted by her friend, Jose. Christian, who comes to the bar unannounced because he can hear over the phone that she's drunk, comes in at the perfect time, intervenes, physically removes her from Jose's arms, and takes control of the situation.
What's it called?
In 365, Laura is assaulted in a club by a rival mafia member. Massimo intervenes violently, shooting the guy in his hands, and forces the guy off of her. These moments do important work because sexual violence, or the threat of it, becomes the justification for the male control. Because now power becomes protection. This is entirely cyclical. Overbearing domination becomes care and is now useful because the woman happened to need it at that time. And this also ensures that the woman looks incapable and in need of a strong, big protector. And the thing is that they don't necessarily need to have the woman be assaulted for this to be necessary. They can simply desire a man who is protective of them. And this is like something that could just happen. But the way that the film specifically looks for something to catalyze the moment that the men are necessary is what's doing the injustice to women who simply want a man who protects them. In 365, Laura's resistance kind of gets rebranded throughout the film. Her fear becomes tension, her anger becomes an attitude, her attempt to escape becomes flirtation. And I remember something that Kenny JD said in her review of 365 when it first came out, which was that if Massimo wasn't hot, this would definitely be a horror movie, and we can all see through these scenes kind of how that would happen. This is often called a brat dynamic, but not in a consensual kink sense. Here, it's narrative retrofitting. Laura's assertiveness isn't treated as a boundary. It's treated as provocation. She's provoking Massimo to do something, to come at her, Domination is not about awakening new desirability, it's about containing desirability, because she's been framed as competent and strong from the beginning of the film. By presenting her as strong, the film is preemptively protecting itself from claims of coercion, of Stockholm Syndrome, and it plays on the idea that she is capable enough to leave if she wanted to. Where Anna's submission is justified through her innocence, her naivete, Laura's submission is justified through excess. Again, different routes, same destination. Now, this is where I want to be very clear. Fantasy is not endorsement. Watching these movies does not automatically make someone want domination, abuse, power, control, imbalance in their life, right? For a lot of people, these films are a safe way to fantasize about control, danger, or intensity, things that they don't actually want in reality. That's the whole point of it being fantasy. Media can be a tool for self-discovery for a lot of people. It can help them figure out what they're curious about, what they don't like, and what feels exciting only in fiction, or just something to have a good laugh at. These movies are funny when you look at them outside of the sexy context. The problem isn't the individual's desire. The problem is the repetition of this dynamic. When dominant culture script keeps telling the same story, that men lead, men control, men save, women submit, it quickly reinforces the idea that power naturally belongs to men, specifically in the sexual field. A plethora of movies with men in charge, and significantly fewer where women take charge, and limited exposure for women to different dynamics until they're on apps like Quinn, for example. It's tired because it's worn out, one might say. But it's important to note that these films did start a lot of this erotic film genre, right? They gave it a lot more acceptability within society to have sex on screen and let that be okay, or show different types of sexual dynamics that are not vanilla, kiss and then fade to black. And that opened a lot of doors for different kinds of representation on screen. That has to be said before I wrap this up. In conclusion, I don't think these movies are ruining anyone's life. I do think they're worth interrogating, because when pleasure is always framed as something men give, it becomes harder to imagine what it looks like to claim it for oneself. Anyone who made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed at least something in this video, or it made you laugh. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Are there any movies or shows that made you think differently about desire or power? Are there romances you love but still side-eye? Or are there other media moments you want me to unpack next? Because I'd love to hear it and make a video about it. Anyway, bye!